I want you to imagine something for a second. You're renovating your house.
Okay.
You hire a contractor to come in, fix the wiring, maybe install a smart thermostat, get the place running more efficiently.
Sounds pretty standard.
But instead of just fixing the wires, they replace the walls. Then they replace the foundation. They completely rewire the entire nervous system of the building.
Oh.
And then when they're done, they hand you a contract.
And I'm guessing this isn't your standard maintenance agreement.
Not even close. This contract says that if you ever want to turn on the lights or open a door or even check the temperature, you have to use their key.
Their proprietary key.
Forever. And oh, by the way, the contractor is a private company based in a different country with a very specific and, let's say, controversial political agenda.
That is a terrifying image. You're basically describing a situation where you live in the house, but you absolutely do not own it anymore.
Exactly.
Ah.
But we aren't talking about smart homes today. We are talking about something much, much bigger. We're talking about the state operating system.
What happens when a government decides to renovate its own infrastructure and, well, ends up handing over the keys to a private vendor?
And that brings us to the subject of today's deep dive.
We are looking at the company that is arguably building that very operating system right now, Palantir.
It's a name that seems to be absolutely everywhere lately. To some people in Silicon Valley, they are the gold standard of big data.
The geniuses who can predict the future.
Right. And to civil liberties groups, they are like the ultimate surveillance nightmare.
It is a polarizing topic, to say the least. And to help us navigate all this, we have a really fascinating stack of sources today.
We do.
We're looking at a heavy-hitting analysis by the AI thought leader Johan Steyn. It's titled Palantir and the Invisible Capture of the State.
That's going to give us the framework, right? How this all works.
Exactly. And to balance that with some serious on-the-ground reporting, we have an investigative interview with the journalist Carole Cadwallader.
From the Politics Joey channel, covering her reporting for The Nerve. And let me tell you, the details in her reporting are wild.
It's a great pairing. Steyn gives us the theory of capture, and Cadwallader gives us the holy cow details. The secret meetings, the weird ideologies, the sheer scale of the money.
Speaking of holy cow, I was reading the notes on the founders, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, and I honestly thought I was reading a sci-fi novel.
Right.
We have everything from the enhanced games, which is basically the Olympics on steroids, literally, to lectures about the Antichrist.
It gets very strange very quickly. But our mission today isn't just to gawk at the eccentric billionaires, though we will definitely get to them.
We will.
We need to answer a fundamental question. What is the difference between a government buying a piece of software like buying Microsoft Word and a government handing over actual power?
Skin calls it the invisible capture. So let's start at the beginning. Palantir. For anyone who doesn't know the backstory, they didn't start as a corporate tool, did they?
No, not at all. They were born in the shadow of 9/11. They were actually funded by In-Q-Tel,
Which is the CIA's venture capital arm.
Exactly. And the original pitch was very specific. Intelligence agencies had all this data, but it was siloed. They needed a way to connect the dots to stop terror attacks. That's Palantir's DNA. But now, 20 years later, they are everywhere.
Health, defense, policing, local government.
You name it.
And Johan Steyn makes a really important point early in his article. He sort of plays devil's advocate. He says, you know what? This stuff actually works.
And I think we have to start there, because otherwise, why would anyone buy it?
Right.
It's crucial to acknowledge that. I mean, if you have ever worked in a big government department or even a large company, you know the reality.
Yeah.
You have data in 50 different formats. The police database doesn't talk to the hospital database, which doesn't talk to social services. It is a total mess.
It's inefficient, it's slow, and sometimes it's dangerous because critical information just gets lost in the cracks.
Exactly. So Palantir comes in and says, we can fix this. We can build the pipe that connects everything. They offer what they call an ontology.
That's their keyword.
It is. They don't just store data, they map the real world. They turn person A and phone number B and location C into a coherent story that a decision maker can just look at on a screen.
And Stan admits that for a beleaguered bureaucrat who is just drowning in spreadsheets, that is an incredibly seductive pitch.
It promises order out of chaos.
We all want efficiency. We want our tax dollars spent well. We want the government to work. So where does Stan say the trap is?
The trap is in the transition, the move from being a vendor to becoming the backbone.
Okay.
Steyn argues that Palantir isn't just a tool like Microsoft Excel. I mean, you can swap out Excel for Google Sheets if you have to.
It's annoying, but you can do it.
Right. It's a pain, but it's possible. Palantir, he says, creates lock-in.
I've heard this term in tech, with iPhones and their ecosystem, but Steyn breaks it down into 4 specific types for governments. Let's walk through these because this is really the core of his invisible capture idea.
It is. The first one is commercial lock-in. That's the basic one. You sign a huge multi-year contract, and the cost of breaking it is just too high.
Standard business stuff.
Right.
We're stuck with this cable provider because the cancellation fee is insane.
Right. But then it gets deeper. The second is skills lock-in. This one is insidious.
How so?
When you outsource your high-level data analytics to a company like Palantir, the government's own staff, they stop doing that work. They stop learning. So over 5 or 10 years, the civil service literally forgets how to process its own data. The brain of the operation moves from the ministry to the vendor.
That's a huge vulnerability. Like if I hired a personal chef for 10 years and then they quit, and I suddenly realize I don't even know how to boil water anymore.
Precisely. You lose the capability to function on your own. Then the third is process lock-in. You start reshaping your entire workflow to fit the software. The government agency starts to look like the software that runs it.
You change your forms, your hiring, your reporting, all of it.
All of it, just to feed the machine. And the fourth,
the point of no return.
Operational lock-in.
Yeah.
This is it. This is where critical functions, distributing vaccines, managing tank deployments, tracking benefits, literally cannot happen without the platform. If the software stops, the state stops.
And Steyn argues that once you hit this level, procurement becomes fiction. That is such a heavy phrase.
It means you aren't really shopping around anymore. You're not putting out a competitive tender to see who has the best price or the best features.
You're just renewing.
You are just renewing the subscription because you have a gun to your head. You cannot leave. And Steyn's argument is that this just hollows out democratic oversight.
Right, because you can't hold a company accountable if you depend on them for survival. And this isn't just theoretical, is it? The sources point out this is happening right now in the UK at a massive scale.
Oh, the scale is staggering. We're seeing deep integration into the Ministry of Defense. There was a report of a $240 million follow-on deal.
A follow-on deal.
And open democracy highlighted the whole revolving door aspect, officials moving from the Ministry of Defense to Palantir and back again.
That always looks suspicious. It creates this ecosystem where the government and the companies start to feel like the same entity. But there was one specific contract that Carol Cadwallader found in her reporting that really made me just stop and reread the notes. She called it a jaw-dropper.
The nuclear contract.
Yeah, a $15 million contract for cloud support for the UK's nuclear deterrent.
It takes a moment to sink in, doesn't it? The nuclear deterrent is the ultimate safety mechanism of a nation. It's the definition of sovereign capability.
It's the one thing you absolutely have to control 100%.
And Cadwallader found that parts of the cloud infrastructure supporting that system are being managed by a private American company.
I think most people assume that stuff is kept in a concrete bunker somewhere, completely air-gapped, running on code written by people who've signed the Official Secrets Act 50 times over.
That is the assumption. But Cadwallader argues this proves that technology has become politics. You can't separate them anymore.
So by embedding a U.S. company into the nuclear workflow, you aren't just buying IT support.
No, you are integrating a foreign entity into your national survival strategy. She calls Palantir a political weapon.
Strong words.
She doesn't mince them. She views Palantir as the tip of a poisonous spear. And this leads to the question, why the UK?
Right.
I mean, defense contracts are nice, they pay well, but Cadwallader suggests the UK has something else that Silicon Valley is desperate for.
The NHS.
The holy grail of data.
I've heard this before, that NHS data is unique. But why is it worth so much more than, say, American health data?
Yeah.
Isn't America a bigger market?
It's the longitudinal nature of it. In the US, your data is totally fractured. You change jobs, you change insurance, you change doctors.
Your records in pieces.
Exactly. The UK has a centralized system that covers almost the entire population from cradle to grave. It is a complete data set of human biology and health outcomes for 67 million people.
For training an AI, that is priceless.
Billions, easily. And Palantir has secured the contract to manage this through something called the Federated Data Platform.
But this is where Steyn points out a trust deficit. The NHS isn't just a service in the UK, it's almost a religion. It relies entirely on public trust.
Completely. If I don't trust that my medical records, my mental health history, my embarrassing conditions are private, I might not go to the doctor.
Or you might lie to the doctor.
Exactly. And if patients start withholding information because they're worried it's being fed into some surveillance machine, the quality of care just plummets.
And Steyn notes that the British Medical Journal actually reported that doctors were being given guidance on how to limit their engagement with the platform.
Specifically because of the Palantir connection.
That is wild. You have doctors basically participating in a soft boycott of their own IT system because they don't trust the vendor.
And Cadwallader mentioned how they got their foot in the door in the first place.
Right, during the pandemic, the £1 deal.
The classic loss leader. Palantir offered their services to the NHS for £1 to help manage the COVID vaccine rollout.
£1. You can't even buy coffee for that.
But as a strategy, it's brilliant. You come in during a crisis, when everyone is panicking, people are dying, procurement rules are suspended, you prove you can solve the immediate problem, you integrate your software.
And then you never leave.
Never. The £1 contract becomes the $330 million Aradeo contract, and then the $480 million Arita contract.
It's the drug dealer model, essentially. First one's free.
It's an aggressive business tactic, sure, but what makes it specifically controversial for Palantir, more than, say, Oracle or Microsoft, is the ideology behind the company.
The men behind the curtain.
We can't talk about Palantir without talking about Peter Thiel and Alex Karp.
Okay, let's get into the wild stuff. Because these guys are not your typical corporate suits who just care about quarterly earnings. Peter Thiel, the founder, has a worldview that is, well, let's just say it's unique.
Unique is putting it politely. Cadwallader describes him as a libertarian, but she argues he goes much, much further than that. He has written in the past that he no longer believes freedom and democracy are compatible.
That is a stark statement coming from a guy whose software is running Western democracies.
It is. He backs this concept of the network state. The idea is that the current model of democratic countries is failing. It's too slow, too messy.
Too gridlocked.
He believes countries should be run more like startups, with a CEO who has absolute authority, essentially a dictator, but a competent one.
So moving from citizens to customers.
Correct. And he puts his money where his mouth is. He funds projects that try to bypass regulation entirely.
Like the free cities.
Yes, he funds free cities, like Prospera in Honduras. Cadwallader noted that because there is almost zero medical regulation there, they are doing experimental gene therapy testing on people.
Desperate people.
It's essentially a biohacking sandbox.
And then there's the enhanced games. This one really blew my mind.
Right. The project to create an alternative Olympics where doping isn't just allowed, it's encouraged.
The goal is to see what the human body can do when you remove all ethical and biological limits.
Just pump the athletes full of science and see how fast they can run.
It sounds like a dystopian movie plot.
Yeah.
But then you have the religious aspect, too.
This was the detail that really surprised me in the reporting. Cadwallader notes that Thiel gave a series of lectures on the Antichrist.
The Antichrist.
Yes. He was speculating on who the Antichrist might be in the modern world, and he apparently suggested it might be Greta Thunberg.
Wait, Greta Thunberg. The climate activist.
That was the suggestion. It paints a picture of a man who views the world in very stark, almost biblical terms. Good versus evil, us versus them.
And Alex Karp, the CEO, the public face of the company, he mirrors this aggression in his own way.
Oh, absolutely. Karp is a character. You see him in tracksuits, hiking in the Alps, wild hair.
But his rhetoric is incredibly sharp. He doesn't do the, we just want to connect the world speech that you get from Facebook or Google.
No. Karp explicitly says Palantir's mission is to make the West stronger than its enemies. He has said, we are here to scare our enemies and on occasion kill them.
Which, to be fair, is what you want a defense contractor to do.
Sure.
If you're building missiles, you want them to work. But it becomes complicated when that same company is running your hospitals.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated when you look at their political connections. Thiel is a major donor to Donald Trump.
And Cadwallader describes J.D. Vance, the vice president, as a wholly owned property of Thiel.
Given that Thiel basically sponsored his entire career in finance and politics. So if you are the UK government and you're signing a massive deal with Palantir, you aren't just signing a deal with a tech firm.
You are connecting yourself to a very specific, very powerful wing of American politics.
That is the argument. And there are connections in the UK, too. Peter Mandelson, a major figure in the Labour Party, was a lobbyist for Palantir.
Cadwallader notes he actually visited Palantir's D.C. offices with the UK CEO. It's a whole web of influence that spans the Atlantic.
It is.
Okay, so let's play the government's advocate again. If you ask a UK minister about all this, the Trump connection, the nuclear cloud, the kill switch, they have a standard answer.
They do.
They say, relax, it's just software. We own the data. It's on our territory. We are sovereign.
And Cadwallader's response to that is?
Well, she calls it bollocks.
A technical term.
Very. But her reasoning and the reasoning of experts like Marriott Sheikh is based on hard law, specifically two pieces of U.S. legislation.
The U.S. Cloud Act and FISA.
Exactly. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
So can you break those down? Why do they matter to a patient in a London hospital? The U.S. Cloud Act is the big one. It effectively says that if a U.S. company possesses data, the U.S. government can demand access to it regardless of where that server is physically located.
So Palantir could store the NHS data on a server in downtown London, guarded by beefeaters.
It doesn't matter. If the U.S. Department of Justice serves a warrant on Palantir in California, they have to hand it over.
So this whole idea of data sovereignty is basically a myth.
As long as you're using U.S. tech, largely yes, the geography of the server is irrelevant to U.S. law. But the bigger risk isn't just them taking the data, it's them stopping the service.
The kill switch risk.
That's it. And Cadwallader gave a scary, real-world example of this regarding sanctions.
She did.
She mentioned UK citizens who were sanctioned by the U.S. government. Overnight, their digital lives just vanished.
No Gmail, no WhatsApp, no Visa, no banking.
All gone. Because U.S. companies are legally forbidden from doing business with sanctioned entities.
Now imagine that applied to an entire government.
Exactly. If the UK government's operating system is run by a U.S. company and the U.S. president decides to exert pressure, maybe during a trade negotiation or a diplomatic spat,
they could effectively hold a kill switch over the UK's ability to function.
Do what we say, or the NHS goes offline.
That is a massive, massive vulnerability. And Cadwallader points out that the Trump administration explicitly viewed U.S. tech giants as part of their national power.
Yes. The national security strategy under Trump viewed companies like Palantir as assets to be used to wage war and coerce other states. They aren't hiding this. They are telling you this is a weapon.
And the UK is buying it and installing it in the very heart of the state. So where does this leave us? If we zoom out, what is the future here? We're not going back to paper files.
No, we aren't. But Johan Steyn offers a really profound warning about the nature of decision-making in this new world. He talks about decision support.
This is how the software is sold, right? We help you decide.
Right. Here is the map, here is the data, you make the call. But Steyn argues that as these systems get more complex, decision support quietly morphs into decision-making.
How so?
Well, think about it. The algorithm determines what you see. It determines what gets flagged as a risk. It prioritizes all the information. If the machine tells a general there is a 90% probability of a threat right here, the general is going to act.
He isn't going to check the raw code.
Of course not. The human just becomes a rubber stamp for the machine's logic.
So the lens becomes the reality. If the machine doesn't show you the problem doesn't exist.
Precisely. And if you don't understand how that lens works, because it's proprietary code owned by a foreign company, you have lost control.
And Steyn warns that if a capable, wealthy state like the UK struggles with this, what chance do developing nations have?
Absolutely no chance. He mentioned South Africa specifically. It's a form of digital colonialism. You are outsourcing sovereignty.
It sounds like we're sleepwalking into this.
Yeah.
Cadwallader said Parliament is asleep at the wheel.
She believes the trade deals the UK is signing, what they call tech prosperity deals, are actually tech enslavement deals. It's a harsh term, but it reflects her view that politicians are just being naive.
They're treating these tech giants like neutral vendors.
Like they're buying paper clips or office chairs, but they're political actors with more power than most nation states.
It's a sobering thought. We started with this idea of renovating a house, and we've ended up realizing we might be handing over the deed.
It is the classic trade-off. Convenience for control. Palantir works. It solves problems. It catches terrorists, and it tracks vaccines. It is incredibly effective.
Think of a cost.
The cost is that you might wake up one day and realize you don't own the keys to your own country anymore.
So here is the final thought for you, the listener, to take away. Johan Steyn puts it best. In the age of AI, the most critical infrastructure isn't roads or bridges or power lines.
No, it is the system that tells the government what is true. The system that tells you what to fear, who to watch, and what to do next.
And if a private company controls that system, that lens, who is actually running the country?
That is the question we all need to be asking.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Keep looking at who owns the ground you stand on.
Stay curious.